So how do I go about targeting a venue that I have never fished before? Let's get on the bank and find out. Well, welcome back to the channel, guys, and I hope you enjoyed the last video. Something a bit different, trying to catch them on pace in the cold weather. But what we're doing here today, right, so this is a lake that I've never fished before. It's a figure of 8 pool here at Yoke Hill Fishery. Nice local place where I've been going, you know, I do a bit of filming and that on the other pools, but I've never actually fished this pool. So with a few matches obviously starting to come up and that, this place has got plenty of opens on over the next few weeks, so I really fancied coming and having a go beforehand, just to get a bit of a look at the place and sort of show you guys how I go about targeting a venue that I've never fished before. Now you're going to have to excuse me a little bit. There's a road right behind me, so there's going to be a bit of road noise, but there's not a lot I can do about that. There's a lot of cars coming and going, and it's quite a blustery day. Now the figure of 8 is it's like a snake lake essentially, but I've been told that it's predominantly carp. There is some F1s in here, but on the whole it's a carp fishery, you know, good carp. And what I did when I got here, I had a little walk round. It's, like I said, it's a real windy day. I had a walk round and it's quite sunny when I got here. And although the pegs to my right look better, and there's a gap in the island, it's a bit wider and stuff, as I was walking around, the sun was down and this bit here was calm, bit of scum on the water, and there was a load of decent carp. They looked like 5-6 pounders sort of milling around here in the sun. So they have moved since I've been here. They've definitely moved back up there, but I thought, you know, I'll go down, find some fish. You know, at the end of the day, I just want to catch a few fish. I'm only here for an hour or so, a couple of hours, and I just wanted to obviously find some fish on a venue that I've never fished before. Now, when I am coming to a venue that I've never fished before, I like to keep it really simple on my first visit. Simple bait, simple tactics, and I just want to get a feel for the place really, how it plums up, what fish I'm looking to catch, the widths of the venue, what baits work, and that just one visit to a venue can tell you an awful lot. You know, if I rattle in some pellets today and get an instant response, and I know that the fish love pellets here, and I can sort of build a plan around that. However, if I tap pellets in and just don't get a response whatsoever, then I may have to look at other baits come the matches when they start. So it might be that meat works or maggots, but just starting with a bait that everything will eat, like pellets, just gives me that option and gives me a quick start of what is actually going to happen down the stretch. So let's have a little look at the bait and then we'll get some fishing done. So moving on to bait for this quick session that we're doing here on the figure of 8 pool. Now, as I alluded to in my intro, I wanted to keep things really simple when it comes to baits, and for me, springtime, you know, there's spring in the air now, it's nice and mild, I'm sat in a hoodie, pellets are the best bait by a mile for me, and I really think that hard pellets come to the fore, especially for carp at this time of year. Now, if it was F1s, small carp, then micros, softened 4s, a few expanders would probably be what I'd look at using to sort of gauge what's happening at the venue. Now, all I've got is 1 pint of 4mm Fin Perfect feed pellets. Now, they may look a little darker to you on the camera, and that is because I've given them just a really light covering in oil. Now, there's a few reasons why I do that. The main one is just to get them to sink, and I don't like them breaking down fast. It is more of a summer thing, but obviously the water is warm enough now that they want to eat hard pellets, so I want to make sure that when I'm only tapping in up to sort of 8 or 9 pellets, I want them to get through that surface film and get to the bottom. So just a little dash of that coconut oil makes them smell better, if you're worried about that, but also just make sure that the pellets get through that surface film without me having to soak them. And that is it. I've just got that 1 pint of pellets. Really simple stuff today. You may notice this is a bit faffy, but I keep them in a little Ziploc bag. So when I get my baits at home, I just I think you get, you know, a couple of pints, 3 pints in a bag of 4mm Fin Perfects. So I just measure them out with a little pint jar into these, give them that little bit of oil, and then I can just take 1 pint at a time. I've got more with me, of course, but last thing I want to be doing is wasting bait. I'm not into that. So I just bring them in small amounts and then just go from there. Right, so we've got nicely set up. I have had a quick little plumb up and it's really interesting, so I thought it's really important to talk you through this because you know, we read so much in fishing magazines, see it on YouTube and stuff like that, where anglers will tell you, and I've told you in the past, that, you know, you go out, you find 2 foot of water, you find whatever, 4 foot of water, but what happens if you can't find them depths and the key depths that anglers talk about? And this is a classic example of it. I've had a quick plumb round and it's so interesting. So it's not very wide here, And like I say, normally I probably wouldn't want to sit here, but because I saw them fish here, I've had to come and sit here for today's session. Now, it looks great. The water looks quite clear, and I thought, oh, it'd be nice slope on the far bank, but that is not the case at all. In fact, I dare say that island looks pretty undercut, and it's pretty sheer. The island is down to the bottom, meaning there isn't actually any shallow water in this peg to fish. I haven't plumbed right up there because it's a bit too far. Obviously I've got the option of swinging around and fishing up there, but because I've seen the fish to my left, I kind of want to focus on that for now. And I found a spot that I think is actually fishable, or what I consider fishable. It's actually about 4 foot, which is probably a bit deeper than what I would have wanted, but I'll show you why I've chosen to fish at that depth in a moment. So let's just whiz across. I've got a nice heavy 30 gram plummet on, which is so important when you're dealing with shells and stuff. You know, you want a real positive reading, I think. So I'm fishing, basically I found a spot in this little alcove here, and basically what it is, as you can see there, look. So if I come back, it's always going away, and then it's bottomless there. So there's a real steep shelf or ledge, whatever you want to call it. You see that? Look, my plummet's rolling down it. It's rolling down it. Horrible. Can't really fish on that, in my opinion. But what I found here is, in this little alcove, if you see that, there's a little, just there. There's a little bit just there, look. You see it? So this is why plumbing up is so important. It may not be the best place to fish come the, you know, in the day, but just as a starting point, that 6-inch little plate almost, you know, I can go a little bit further and it's relatively flat. It's not perfect, don't get me wrong, but compared to everything else that I've found, it's probably the best I can do at the moment, just to find somewhere to fish. So I've plumbed up to the bottom of the float, and I'm quite happy with that. I can play around with that, but that is the best option I've found. If I go over here, for example, it's just not quite right, in my opinion. So that's where I've sort of plumbed up for cross as a starting point. I'm just gonna fish one swim across for now. I'll explain why in a moment. And then down the middle, I've plumbed up, and again, down to my left, it's pretty flat down the middle, to be honest. Oh, just as a quick point, it's the same depth down the margin. There's a real nice sort of reed bed down the corner. I think there's probably going to be a few carp down there later in the session, and that rig will do it, that 4x10 rig. We'll talk about the rigs in more detail soon. Down the middle, caught out my bush there, has really caught me out how deep it is down the middle. It's a full top kit, which is sort of 6 foot, I suppose, and it's, yeah, literally a full top kit. Now the plumbing, far less, you know, uncomplicated. For carp and snake lakes in the spring, it's rarely, unless you're on a really solid place, it's rarely about the short pole, in my opinion. You know, you may catch them there late on, but generally they're still coming out of winter mode. They're still trying, like today, the sun in the cells, they're backing off from anglers. So my track line is actually 13 metres to my left in the deepest water, and that is where I'll start. It may be that the fishing's good and I can move, but for a starter, I think that's going to be a nice point. Incidentally, it's about 18 inches deeper than it is to my right, because I did swing around and have a quick plumb up to my right. So they may not want to be in that deep water, but I just feel like getting the pole away from me is a great starting point. So let's get some fishing done and see if we can catch some fish. Right, so moving quickly on to rigs now, and there's simple stuff here. We're fishing hard pellets today, and the first obvious thing that I want to talk about is the lasso. Now, a lot of people use bands. I prefer a lasso. It's just something I've always done. I just like how it sits on the line. I think that, you know, it's a bit less obvious to the fish, but we'll run through the details of that lasso later, how to tie it and that. I'm going to nip into the tackle room and show you how to do that. But the rigs, if you've seen any of the stuff like Jamie Hughes does on Winning Ways, he's a big proponent of this as well, and it's fishing hard pellets through the water with strung out rigs. It's something I've done for many years, and I know that loads of top anglers have too. So because of how I'm feeding with a little sprinkle pot, you know, rattling pellets in regularly, fish are gonna come up and down. They're not just gonna sit there on the bottom with a tight little trap on the bottom. So if I fish a nice strung out rig, it's just going to give me the option of catching an odd one through the water, and oftentimes the bait, you know, your bite will come as soon as that float settled. So for a cross, I've already talked you through where I've picked a fish and the spots that I've chosen, but for a cross I've got a 4x10 F1 maggot, so a carbon stem float, and it's getting on for 4 foot, tight against the island. Now, as I mentioned in the plumbing up section, the island's pretty steep, right against it. There's nowhere really to fish tight against the island. So what I've done, I've come back a little bit. It's really steep. I've had to have a really good plumb around today to find something that I really want to fish on. And I found that little area that's flat. It's common here on these lakes. The plumb up quite bad across. But anyway, so that's, even though it's a little bit deeper than I would have liked, that 4 foot on a flat spot I think will be quite nice today. And I've just got strung out number 11 shot. Nothing too fancy. I've got 10 Jura Hollow in the pole, and I've got them a little sprinkle pot. Down the track, very much similar, very much similar. It's really deep actually down the track. It's almost a full top kit of my pole. It is pretty much a full top kit of my pole. And I've got a 4x12 F1 maggot. The wind's not bad here at all today. I've literally sat in the calmest place on the lake. And a 4x12, again, gives me a nice slow fall and hook bait, and it just gives me an option of swinging it out past the pole tip, just messing around with it a bit more. So very similar. I've got 11s down the bottom end, and then I've got 9s up here just to take the shot the float better. I don't like having loads and loads of shot up the rig. I just don't really want that. I just think it's asking for tangles, but I do want them strung out, so I just put a few big ones at the top so I don't have to have too many shot on the line. Again, that's got a lasso on it, 18 GPM, 012 hook length, and 11 hollow elastic, 4x12 F1 maggot, and then a number 8 back shot. So that's the rigs, really simple. Interestingly, the island rig doubles up as a margin rig. The margins are really deep as well. So let's get on it, let's get some fish caught. Right, because I want to do this in as close to real time as I possibly can, I'm going to feed my swims. I'm not going to prime or anything, I'm just going to go in and feed them as you would on a session. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to feed the track swim with a decent amount, probably 50 pellets, and just leave it. You know, it might be that I catch them across to start with, I might not, who knows, hopefully. But I'm just going to put a decent amount of pellets in down the track and just hopefully leave that for a bit, just to gather some fish. So we'll put that in down the track. Like I say, this is in real time, so I haven't fed anywhere yet. Rattle them in. I've just got the sprinkle lid on the pot. That's all them in there. Got to rattle them out, but it doesn't matter. It's worth taking time. These sprinkle lids are so invaluable when you're hard pellet fishing, particularly for carp. We'll put that down there. Right, let's get a pellet on and get some fishing done across. See if we can catch some fish. So, first job is to get a pellet on. Right, I'm using a lasso today, which is my preferred method of fishing hard pellets. It's a bit more fiddly, but I just think the benefits are clear to see, to be honest with you. So just shove that in there. I use a banding tool to get the pellet in the lasso. Just one of the feed ones. Nice and easy. It's a little bit fiddly, but with a banding tool I can nicely present a 4mm pellet. Right, so let's get some pellets in the pot and start the process, and you'll soon see why this sprinkle pot is so invaluable, because it means I can feed several times in a cast. And certainly early on, when you're trying to build a swim and trying to work out a venue for the first time, being able to have several feeds is so important. Now, I'm not going to try and sprinkle them in from too much of a height to start with. So I've just tapped in like 8 or 9 pellets there. Oh, we've got one already. Well, that was unexpected. Took it on the drop. And that, if this fish isn't foul hooked, shows you how important that little light rig is, because if this isn't foul hooked, he's seen that pellet falling and he's had it straight away. And I've only rattled in, you saw it happen in real time, I've rattled in like 8 pellets. You know, my landing net's still dry, I've literally just started. So if this is hooked in the mouth, that explains why that 4x10 float is so important right from the word go. Big fish, this. Feels in the mouth. Now you may be wondering why I'm using hollow instead of my Duraslip that I normally use. A couple of reasons. But the main one is, when it's spring and I just want to land everything, then I do like hollow, especially where carp are concerned. You know, it just gives me that added stretch, and it allows me to make a few mistakes, basically, is what I'm trying to say. If I do foul like a fish, it stretches for miles, hasn't got too much power, and I can get the fish in. Which may seem a bit backwards, but it does work. Oh, it's a good fish, this, and it is in the mouth. It's a big one. Look at that. Wow, what's that? Yeah, this is totally in real time, so, well, it's massive. And it's lip hooked. Look at the size of that. Well, I wasn't expecting that at all. Look at that. Well, it's £10, that. Massive. And that, first chuck, that is God's honest truth, on my daughter's life. I've not fed that or anything. You've just seen that happen in real time. And the fish has taken the bait on the drop. My float hadn't settled. I just laid it in. I just emptying a few pellets in, and the elastic's essentially pulled out. So look at that, right in the top lip, perfectly hooked. That little 18 GPM is in there. I haven't got a key net in or anything today, but we'll show you this little beauty. Look at that. Look at that, what a fish. So a real proper lump, Yo-kill lump. Calm down. Beautiful, look at that, what a fish. What a great start to my session. I was not expecting that, so we'll just slip him back. Wow, so, wasn't expecting that, gotta be honest. I thought, with looking at the water, it's a little bit clear. I thought, could be tricky this. But, what a great fish to start with. So, because I've caught a fish, I'm going to change my pellet, which is a little bit fiddly, but worth doing. You know, you're feeding hard pellets at the end of the day, so you want to make sure that your pellet is fresh on the hook. There, nice. Right, let's see if we can get another bite. Right, because I didn't feed them pellets, I like to feed the hard ones, so I'm not going to put so many in this time, because there's no need. There's quite a bit of rubbish here on the top, which I think is why I found them fish round here this morning when I first got here. So that is a total fluke. So let's see if it happens again. I do apologise, I've got a bit of a cold. It's not COVID. I actually had a test last night, so it's not COVID, which is great news. Let's just get a couple more pellets in. Right, there we go. And I'm just going to lay that float in as I did just then. See, I've got my back shot there, and it's just a case now of actually working out what's going to happen. It may be that I have to feed more, less, who knows, but that is an amazing start. So you may notice that I've got a little bit of show on my float. You know, I've got a little bit of bristles sitting out. You know, I'm fishing for proper carp, so the last thing I want is, you know, to be too precise with everything. I don't want it dotted to a pimple. I want to give myself a little moment to think about whether I should strike at the indication or not. You know, indeed, obviously that first fish was huge. It was, you know, close to £10 I would have thought. So I don't want to be striking at line. Certainly don't want to be foul looking those fish. So I'm just going to feed again. And I'm feeding this time with my float in the water. This is for a good reason. I'm trying to work out what's happening, or if anything's happening. If I get an indication as them pellets are falling, I know that the fish are going to be quite, you know, active. But as I'm not, it may be that I have to be super patient and just wait for bites. And if they're £10 a go, then you certainly can be patient. Now, it may be that I have to catapult some bait in. You know, there is that option. Loose feeding always brings fish in when you hard pellet fishing, but if I can avoid it, I will. You know, if I can catch an odd fish don't think it's going to be frantic by any means. You know, £60 wins the matches here. You know, I've got a large percentage of my winning weight already. So you've got to think about what you're actually targeting. You know, if it was F1s and you're trying to be fast and furious and building a peg, then I can get it. You know, you're feeding with a catty. But for now, I'm trap setting for a carp. You know, I'm more than happy to just sit and wait, tap a few pellets in. Don't go mad with the bait. Don't give them too many options. I'm just going to lay my rig out again. Bit of rubbish on it there. Lay the rig out again. And just sort of be patient, really. You may think, why don't I use a bigger pot and fill it right up and give yourself like 10 goes? But the problem is with that, you end up with a load of pellets in your pot that you aren't actually feeding, and they either go soggy and block up your pot, or worse still, when you're trying to be so precise as I am here, like setting a little trap in one spot, if I was to hook a fish or whatever, a wind catches my pole and it sprinkles pellets all over the place, it's just going against what I'm trying to achieve. So I'd rather just ship back, fill the pot up and do it properly every time. So that's sort of where I'm at. So I'm just going to ship back, feed again. You know, it doesn't take long to do this, so just do it. So a few more pellets. Nice. I've gone on with a 4mm in the lasso. Just a good starting point, really, more than anything. So let's just tap in a couple more. You can actually count the pellets out, so I've probably put like 6 in there. So take that first fish out of the equation. This is how I expected it to be more, to be honest. Little indication there. So just wait. You know, I'm fishing for big fish today. I knew that coming in. There is some small carp and stuff in here, but largely it's big carp. And obviously with the weights in the summer being quite low, you know, it stands to reason that if I come in March, although I'm pleasure fishing, it's still not going to be easy. So I really think I'm going to have to work hard and be really patient. You know, have a brew while I'm fishing, just sit and chill. And this is where the real good anglers know what's up here, because you know, they're patient. They assess what they need to win, what they need to compete weight wise, and then go from there. And you can see, because I can see there's a tiny little black bit at the base of my bristle that when the pellet's on the bottom, it's ever so slightly proud, and that it just allows me to know that my bait's presented nicely. You know, if it was off bottom, it would probably sit a bit low on my float. Right, there we go. So just as predicted, so that's, what is that, third chuck, and I've had to set a trap and be really patient now. I don't know what it's been running for, but certainly 10 minutes. And I've just been patient. I've fed twice that chuck, just little amounts, but setting that trap, and I've got another fish. Nice clean bite, there was no like liners or anything like that. A minute before or something, I sort of felt there was a fish there. I got a little sort of knock, and I've got it. So there's not loads of bait on the bottom, which asking for foul hookers or anything like that. I've just got a real nice fish again, sort of wallowing in. Yeah. Oh, I missed him. Poor netting. Lovely. Another nice big common. Awesome. So, as you can see, look at that, another beast. Let's see where the hook hold is. So top lip again, perfect, right in. Got that 4mm lasso pellet there. Let's have a little quick look at him. Real lean, mean fighting machine, that one. Even though he waddled in a bit. Look at that, another £5. So all of a sudden, probably £6 actually. So all of a sudden we've got sort of £16. Well on the way to putting together a real sort of good net of fish. Now, I've mentioned a couple of times about the lasso, so let's head back to the tackle room now, have a look at that lasso and how to tie it. Okay, so the lasso and how to tie it. Really simple stuff, to be honest. It's something I've used for years and years and years. My good friend Andy Geldart, who I fish with for years, he always used to use the lasso, and in my opinion, he was the person who sort of, when it comes to hard pellet fishing, he was just the best at it. For years and years and years, dominated Whiteacres festivals and stuff like that. Won Fishermanias and stuff. Just an awesome angler, and he always used a lasso, and it just stuck with me all them years ago. And to be honest, I've had times where I have definitely caught fish. Like I've used lassoed pellets, ran out of maybe a lasso, put a banded one on. I've had it at Makins where, and it's not been as good. So obviously, when you have like situations like that happen to you, you sort of, I don't know, your confidence obviously breeds, doesn't it, when you do something and it works. So for me, when I want to use like hard pellet, then I use the lasso. As far as hook choice goes, I just keep it simple. The GPMB is my choice, 18 or a 16, doesn't really matter. I do like an 18, I must admit. That's just me. KKM is also worth trying. Definitely a good hook for this. It does actually sit quite nicely with the outturned eye, so well worth trying. A couple of other bits you need. Loop sizer, obviously, I talk about that all the time. My little loop sizing doodah. Need that. Nice sharp pair of scissors. Always need that whenever tying anything. And obviously a good mono. I like AccuPower. It's up to you. Now there's one little gadget that I've had for a few years. It's actually a gizmo lasso sizer. I've had this for quite a few years since I was on the magazine, and it's a really handy little tool. Don't think they're made anymore, unfortunately, but it's a really handy little tool, and it's got like 4mm, 8mm, 4mm, 6mm, 8mm and 10mm steps on it, so you can size your lassos dead easy. If you haven't got one of these, something like you just obviously want something that's 4mm and 6mm really, that you can wrap it around and size it. So okay, so let's get on with it. Now the first job is to form the lasso. So I'm just going to pull some line off this, not too much, and I'm going to stick it under my trusty bean can that's out of shot. So I've got a bit of tension. I normally actually put it underneath my legs, but can't do that. Right, so it's a grinner knot. Oh, I know it is a grinner knot, but I'm sure like some of the guys in the comment section will probably say it's a different knot, but what I do, I pull the line like that and I wrap it around those two fingers like that. You see? Hopefully you can see that. And then wrap it around those two fingers like that. So I've then got a loop. Hopefully you can see that. And then pass the tag end through that second loop 4 times. You could do it 3, but I just prefer to do it 4. Never had it come undone really, so pull that through. And as you can see, I've got the big loop, which is the lasso, and then the loop that's tightening down. So just pull that down like that. You see that? Perfect. This is where this little gadget comes in, the old loop sizer. There. So the knot's come down. You see that? So I've got a lasso, I've got my loop. Perfect. So all I'm going to do now is trim that like that, and then pop it off. So now I've got my little lasso there. Hopefully you can see that nicely. Perfectly tied, ready to accept a 6mm pellet. So now we need a hook. I'm going to tie what am I going to tie? 16 for this. You've got 16 GPM, and it's going to be a 4-inch hook length, so give yourself plenty of line to work with. Sorry, I'm still full of cold. And then we'll tie a knotless knot. Now the beauty of the lasso is you can get it really close to the bend of the hook, and you see that? So I'm just going to bring that pretty tight. I just like to sort of have it there, if that makes sense, on the back of the bend of the hook. Hopefully you can see that quite nicely. So it's just there, back of the band, and I'm going to whip down probably, don't know, 6-7 times, not too many. back through the eye, nice, like that. Pull it all in, into position, and there we go. So that's it. It's as simple as that. We've got a lasso just off the bend of the hook, so you can imagine your pellets in that loop, nice and in that loop, and I've got probably 2 mil of spare line there to allow me to get my banding tool in, open it up, and slot the pellet in. Now it's really important that, because if it was too tight, you can't quite get the banding tool in and get the pellet in. And obviously some venues, some 6 mils vary in size, so just give yourself a few mil leeway. But that, in my opinion, is a lovely way to present a hard pellet. Okay, so that's the lasso shown you. I've shown you how to tie that in the tackle room, and it's, like I say, it's a real nice, neat sort of way of doing it, in my opinion. Not the be all and end all. Plenty of anglers catch loads of fish with banded pellet, but just in my head, it makes a difference. So, there's a couple of key items of tackle that you need when you're fishing with lasso pellet. The first is a bander. Now, that might sound stupid. You're like, Joe, it's a bander, but that is an invaluable little tool for opening up your lasso. Because I fish it so refined and tight to the hook and everything like that, I need that to get it open enough to get the pellet in. Simple enough, like, you know, I just pop it in there, really simple, pop it in, open it up, and then slot my pellet in and tighten the pellet down like I've shown you in the tackle room. So that banding tool, although obviously meant for bait bands, is invaluable when you're lasso fishing as well. Second item of tackle, this might sound stupid, that is so important when you're lasso fishing, is a fine hair net. Now, this sort of net, this soft fine hair net, is so, it'll just save you from a world of pain. If you have an open style mesh, which is nicer for scooping fish, I won't deny that, but if you have an open style mesh net and try and fish with a lasso, honestly, your day will become a nightmare. Your pellet will get stuck in your landing net when you're unhooking fish, the fish will nod its head around, pull off, and it just, oh my God, it's so frustrating. Get yourself a fine net, makes the job of lassoing pellets and using them so much better. Right guys, hope you enjoyed that. So that's the lasso covered, why I use it, how to tie it, and also the few little bits of tackle that you need just to make it enjoyable to use. So we're going to try and catch a couple more fish across, and then we're going to, I'm also keen to catch some fish down the track and just see if that's a viable option in a match. So what I'm going to do, because I've caught them 2 fish, I'm just going to top up that track swim with another sort of 50 pellets. So that's it. I'm not going to get through a load of bait today, but it's key to be fairly regular with it. Part of the attraction of hard pellets is noise. You know, they obviously enjoy eating them, but you can see that right down the middle on the end of my section, nice and accurate. I've got a far bank marker. I'm just going to rattle those in from a bit of a height, probably 18 inches, 2 foot. It'll be relatively accurate. Obviously the main accuracy will come when I actually fish the swim. Just getting a fresh pellet on there and see if we can catch another one across. Again, it's going to take a little bit of time to build it up again. You know, just caught one that's took a bit of time to catch him, and that looks like that could be the pattern for the day. Patience, patience, patience. And this is where this style of fishing differs from F1 snake lake fishing. You know, with F1s you can skip all around the place and be busy and active, but with carp it's just not necessary. It just really isn't necessary. So, you know, you want to pick a place where you can fish nicely like I've done. I've taken the time to have a real good plumb around. I've got a fresh pellet on there, just so you know. You know, I found what I think is the perfect sort of spot in that little hole over there, and now I'm happy to sit and wait for the action. I know that there's some fish in the swim because I've seen them swimming around earlier, and it's just a case of now being patient and not making any mistakes. So nice and steady, just get the pole to my marker where I know that little bit of flat is. I've got my pot right on my pole tip, and I've just rattled in probably 8 pellets there. Lay the float out. Tuck it under this little sedge thing, best I can, hold that tight and just wait for it to sort of weight up. Right, so regarding, looking at other baits and stuff like that, obviously I'm happy with what I'm doing here. I'm fishing those hard pellets, which is great. Is there a place for another bait on my side tray for the match when I'm actually return from under match conditions? And it's quite hard to see anybody else fishing. So I know they catch on maggots here, but that I don't really want to go down that route if I can help it. Looking at the stamp of fish that I've caught here today, big fish. I'm just not sure maggots is the bait for them, in my opinion. I much prefer to fish baits like pellets. Meat is definitely an option though. I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the stamp of fish, I'm looking at the way I'm having to set a trap and wait. That is classic meat snake lake fishing, that is, especially in the spring. And I know how deadly that can be when you just tap in like 6 or 7 cubes of meat and literally just sit and bore a carp on. I know that is such a deadly tactic on commercials. It looks like you're not catching anything, and then at the end you've lifted up your net and there's a load of fish in it because you've just been patient over a bait that they want to eat. Oh, that was a little indication. So I think I will probably bring some meat on the match. It does look like a meat place. Meat and hard pellets looks favourable to me. Micros are obviously brilliant at getting fish in your swim, but with how this peg plumbs up, I haven't plumbed up obviously the rest of the lake, so this is just me sort of thinking out loud. I just feel like micros would make the job hard. If all the swims are this deep at the island, I just think that any sort of feeding any baits like micros and expanders and stuff would just be making my life difficult. I just know that if I fed a cad pot full of micros over there and a carp came in, I think I'd just be foul looking them. So I'm not. The only other thing with micros is they do pull your fish and kick start your swim quickly. So it's a bit of a rock and a hard place really, because it might be nice just to soak up some 2 mils and just have them on the tray just in case. But my gut is saying 4 mil pellets, hard pellets, and meat. That would be my choice. Right, so we've had those 2 fish across, and it's time now to have a go down the middle. Now, there's not been that many indications across. I've had obviously those 2 nice fish, and then I've had a handful of little signs that there might be some fish there, but not a lot. And obviously, I'm trying to build a plan here as to what we can do in a match. And obviously, I'm topping up this track swim and not really knowing what's going on down there, so I'm just going to have an early look just to see if there's any fish down there, and then I can either top it up more often, I can stick on it, I can, it might be that this is the place to fish. So I'm just going to have a quick little look down the track and help me make an informed choice about where I need to be fishing, because obviously the island's given me 2 nice fish, but it hasn't been, certainly not been like easy. There's not been loads of signs of fish, and I do know that there's loads. I've fished loads of places like this over the years. Makins is such an obvious comparison. Shearsby Valley before they took the islands out was another one. When you're fishing for big fish on snake lakes, sometimes I just want to be out the way, especially in the spring. And the track can be a really good place, especially here where it's 6 foot deep. It just screams sort of nice depth to catch them in, to me, in the spring. So I'm just gonna give this 10 minutes, see what happens. So I just fed I have fed a little bit more here. I've probably fed 10 or a dozen pellets, because I kind of want to feed a slightly larger amount and sit a bit longer because of the depth. If I was to feed 3 or 4 pellets regularly, I'm asking for liners and stuff. So one thing that you might be wondering is why I've chose to fish. I've mentioned it, alluded to it, but why I'm fishing the track right down there and not just here in front of me. And it's a valid point, and one that is quite interesting, especially today, in the era of the F1 where, they will happily feed down the middle, right in front of you. And I'm not saying you wouldn't catch some carp if you just fed down here, but in my head, and certainly in my experience, spring carp especially, when they're still pretty cute, they're not feeding too heavily yet. They are feeding, but they're not feeding too heavily. You know, I'm hedging my bets by fishing right down there. I'm giving myself plenty of space, you know, there's a long way between me and where I'm fishing, 13 metres. In my head, I'm giving myself the best option of turning this into a nice line, and I can catch fish on it all throughout the day, whereas I feel like if I just fed there, hard pellets there, or meat there, or whatever, then there's a chance that I might only catch on that in the last half hour, last hour. Whereas the track in the spring especially can be a really important part of your swim for these big carp. Oh, there we go, we got one. I just sat there nice and patient, and we've got one. So that's good. Obviously I fed it at the start, I think I fed it 2 more times since the start, and then we've got one. So no indications whatsoever. I've just sat there probably 5 minutes and it's just buried, and we've got one. So that's really nice to see, that is. I'm going to be a bit, like I say, the big fish these are just going mad. I'm going to take my time, I don't want to lose them. I've got that 012 hook length on, 012 AccuPower, which is lovely and strong. But I think I could probably go to 014, given the size of the fish that I've seen now. I'll probably fish 014 in the match when I come back. This isn't as big as the other 2 fish, but a sort of typical track fish. They tend to be a little bit smaller, but obviously during the match when things aren't happening, and these fish all add up. Nice fish though. Lovely mirror. Look at that. Right in the top lip, so everything's bang right. My plumbing's right to the bottom of the body, like Des always says. I've even got Desi's float on, haven't I? The old 4x12 F1 maggot, but it is dead right for this sort of fishing. Right, we'll put a fresh pellet on. And I'm going to just catch one more for you guys. Probably going to have another hour after the video ends, but I think we can, while waiting for the next one, sort of summarise quite nicely. We've shown you how to tie the lasso, and yeah, I think we can, when I get back out there and sit waiting for the bite, we can have a quick rundown of what I'm thinking, and hopefully it's been a little bit different, been quite in depth this one. Hopefully there've been some invaluable lessons for you to take away. Just swing that out. There's quite a bit of smeg on the water. I really like that. Rattle those pellets in, and then the wait begins for the next bite. Right, so let's just summarise. So I've come to a venue that, you know, I've not fished before. Like I say, I fished the other lakes, and a few years ago, when Dale and Lisa took this venue over, this lake had an explosion of tiny fish, and I came and did a video with the legend that is Kev Falwell, and you might remember he caught 1,000 little carp like that. Don't think they're in here anymore. I think they took them out, and so I haven't actually fished this lake before, so that's the main thing. I found some knowledge out. You know, I spoke to a few guys that I know who fish this lake. They told me it's proper carp, a few F1s in here, but mainly proper carp. And then I looked at previous match results from last year and years gone by, and even in the height of summer, there was the odd £100 weight, but to be fair, 60 to 80 pound was a more common winning weight. So that led me straight away to think, well, if it's big carp, relatively low winning weights, then it's going to be all about patient fishing. So I've come here with that whole mindset. I've brought one bait to help me work out where the best place in the swims is to target. I've picked 3 nice little spots. I haven't even tried the margin yet. I may not even try it. that's sort of one for real late in the day, I was thinking spring. And I've come with a plan just to suss out what's best. You know, I've shown you the simple rigs that I've used, simple bait. I've found where I've plumbed up. Plumbing up's been key today. You know, yes, I've not caught loads of fish, but already in my head I'm thinking, well, I've got a clear plan. You know, find a couple of spots against the island that are worth fishing. Be patient, feed your bait, sit and wait, like I'm doing now. I fed my bait and I'm just going to sit and sit and sit. And that's it really. I've got an open mind as in bait wise. I think hard pellets are a must. Obviously, I'm definitely going to bring them when I come back and fish a match here. But I am definitely going to bring some meat. It does look meaty to me. Spring proper carp. Yeah, I think a couple of tins of 6mm meat will go down a treat here, to be honest. I see that being a real effective tactic. There we go. So we've been nice and patient. I did actually just relay my rig in there, and it's gone pretty sharpish. It doesn't feel like a big fish, this one, actually. Nevertheless, it's a fish to end on. Oh, it's a skimmer. Not really what I was expecting, but a nice skimmer all the same. Nice little fish to end on. And obviously, if there's some skimmers in here, it's you know, they're more than welcome. But I think it's going to chuck it down, so I'm going to have to pack the camera away. But thank you so much for watching again. Please subscribe, like, really helps the video get out there, and we'll see you again next time.